designing experiences in a way that help people regulate their nervous systems, help them really alter their emotions in a way that help them make better decisions that lead to better worlds for themselves. I can help somebody like increase their oxytocin, reduce their stress, and help amplify their well-being. Well, damn, that's pretty powerful. I was a kid who struggled with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorders. Throughout my life, I just became super fascinated with, modern neuroscience and really just trying to understand how human beings at their core manage their feelings, manage their emotions, how that impacts their behavior, and ultimately determines their decision making. Being a kid with ADHD, you have to work 10 times harder as everybody else.
Jessica Weickert, Vice President of Creative Strategy at XD Agency, Women We Admire's Top 50 Female Leaders, award-winning experiential storyteller, and World Experience Organization Council member.
61% of fashion brands are looking at increasing their experiential marketing budget just because of how everybody is raising the bar. 77% of people, they want their senses to be awakened. They want to feel more alive. When I first started in strategy, the age-old framework that everybody talks about, which is what do we want them to think? What do we want them to feel? What do we want them to know? Neuroscience proves that it's just wrong. We should be focusing on when somebody feels something, that's when we think, and that's when we do.
What's the line between authenticity and manipulation and being authentic about what we're creating as well here?
Ooh, yeah.
Jessica, welcome to the Experienced Designers podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I'm a huge fan of yours, so
thank you.
excited.
And I'm super excited for today. I know just before we jumped on the show now, we're just sharing our mutual feel good factor that we think we have a good one, haven't we? That we think we're gonna dive into today. So
yeah, no pressure. But yes,
No.
I think there's some magic that's brewing here. I'm excited to chat.
Cool. Well, look, let's dive in.
Yeah.
So look, I mean, I know we always talk about the what and the how. We're going to talk definitely around some of the work that you do and some of the perspectives that you have around experience strategy and experiences period. But actually, let's get in a little bit the who and the why before we dive into that. In your kind of personal story and reflecting on that, on your journey to today, those kind of people or influences that have really kind of you can reflect back on and say, that was a real intrinsic challenge or moment in my life that has really kind of defined me today and really kind of drives some of the work that you do.
I love this question. I think it's a really good one. So when I was a kid, I think a huge part of my childhood and my upbringing that really shaped me into who I was I was a kid who struggled with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorders. And the more I started to learn about it and learn about myself and sort of just a lot of scientists who really studied this condition, what's really interesting is that they say it actually is something that's mislabeled. It was labeled in the 1920s, about little boys who couldn't sit still, who were super disorganized. But as it's been studied for decades now, almost centuries, is that it's actually an emotional regulation disorder. And so the more I started to learn about that, the more I actually started to uncover wow, it's not just actually people who have ADHD. The average person actually, to begin with, cannot manage their emotions. We have trouble as human beings managing our nervous systems. It's why we sometimes make super bad decisions. Or when you're a teenager, you're listening to punk metal rock, right? Trying to manage all of the pressures of being a teenager and growing up, because our emotions simply get in the way and really turn us into those, irrational human beings. And so throughout my life, I just became super fascinated with, modern neuroscience and really just trying to understand how human beings at their core manage their feelings, manage their emotions, how that impacts their behavior, and ultimately, determines, their decision making. Fast forward to what, I'm doing at XDA. And a huge part of our creative strategy team, we've identified a very unique opportunity in experience design. Again, knowing that us as human beings, we have such a hard time managing our emotions, right? Is designing experiences in a way that help people regulate their nervous systems, help them, really alter their emotions in a way that help them make better decisions that lead to better worlds for themselves. That's really the foundation of what our brand platform and XDA is all about, which is known as Create Better. It's about creating better experiences that lead to better worlds for the lives of the people that we're designing for, which is a huge reason why we leverage neuroaesthetics as part of our creative strategy team.
Yeah. So tell me, how does that, just in terms of some of those, I guess, challenges from ADHD, like particularly during those like formative years,
Yeah.
can you share a little bit more on that in terms of how it impacted you and some of the kind of that resilience that develops as part of that, or even how you cope and use it as well in a way from a creative perspective?
Yeah, no, I love that question as well. So, I would say, being a kid with ADHD, you have to work 10 times harder as everybody else. I was really fortunate to be in a school where they actually we're very inclusive of children with ADHD and learning disabilities and learning differences. And what's really interesting, which I look back and laugh when we're talking about neuroaesthetics, is I actually took my tests in a different room, and the room was intentionally designed in a way to help children with ADHD. It was painted with spa colors. They would play classical music, right? The colored paper that I would take tests on were a different color, right? They were, a neon green, because neon green is known to really boost focus, right? And sharpen cognitive function, right? So we're already seeing like some neuroaesthetics happening when I was a kid, right? With learning. Um, I would also say, ADHD is a superpower. Being a part of a creative agency, having ADHD, you can multitask really, really well. You're super, super empathetic. Going back to that emotional piece, you can connect with people on a different level, especially, around, again, the empathy piece of, if somebody's being, super sensitive around something, you kind of have a deeper level of understanding as to where they're coming from, right? Because of ADHD. So I always say that ADHD isn't a disability, it's an ability, right?
Yeah.
It's this superpower that allows you to be more creative, more empathetic, and yeah, allows you to multitask better.
Definitely. I think it's um I think I definitely relate on the empathy side. Yeah, both my children have got dyslexia, and I think one of my children, you can see from an empathic point of view, is just like, I mean, just on another
Totally.
level. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like go forth and right. Use the whether it's a skill based or whether it's from a neuro perspective. Yeah, use your strengths. Yeah,
100%. And when we're also thinking about what's interesting now is, I would say in experience design, inclusion is so important when we're thinking about neurodivergent audiences, right? And there's like neurodivergent audiences, and then there are people who might not be neurodivergent, but we're coming out of, 5 years from the pandemic where people are having trouble regulating their nervous systems, like because we were literally trapped in our houses for so long, right?
yeah.
Where, we need, like, you're seeing all these music festivals and concerts have these, decompressed lounges and, mind and body resets before they go back and go listen to their favorite band, right? Because people need that reset now. So there's a lot that we can learn from the neurodivergent community, right? When it comes to experience design as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was going to ask you that question actually. So well
Oh, that's
said.
funny. Yeah.
um, can I ask? Let's dive into the field in which you are serving and engaging with in this passion,
Yeah.
definite passion that you have for. But let's start at the top, really, on a more like holistic level. For those that perhaps don't work in the more kind of experiential marketing
Yeah.
industry, like, I mean, from my perspective, what I see, I mean, you just have to look at like Cannes Lion Festival, right, to see where kind of brand activation is right now, and where some of those kind of immersive experiential focuses. And obviously, you're looking at high value brands, Louis Vuitton, etc., doing some incredible stuff. What do you like? Where are we right now? I'd love to get your like view from your perspective on where this kind of market is today, and where some of those key pillars have been evolving, say post COVID,
Mhm.
as part of that journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah, I think it's important to talk about what experiential marketing was sort of traditionally seen
Mm.
as, even prior to the pandemic, and then looking at experiential marketing now post pandemic. Like you mentioned, experiential marketing when I first started was kind of like, hey, we have this business problem. Let's use our experience, almost like a call to action, a tool to solve said business problem. It was more around, hey, this is something that people attend, not necessarily something that lives on beyond that moment in time,
Yeah.
right? And then the pandemic happened, everything happened overnight, right? We were all there. And now coming out of the pandemic, and there's a amazing study that was done by Wonderman Thompson a couple years ago, um, where they said that 77% of people are now, it's like a reawakening, right? They want their senses to be awakened. They want to feel more alive, and they expect brands to help them feel those intense emotions, right? And so now we're seeing this profound shift in experiential marketing, where it's no longer just about the business problem, right? It's about the human problem behind the business problem, and a lot of people miss that part, right? It needs to be about how can we design for feeling and emotion, right? And solving that problem using the human problem as a way into almost like a gateway, right?
Yeah.
And so experiences are no longer really a call to action, right? They're really a call to feeling, right? And you and I have talked about this before. you know um, also feel like experiences in the past, everybody, when we're talking about immersion, right? It's like, oh, we're trying to get them to escape to this other world. And again, it's no longer really even about escapism anymore. It's really about that inscapism, giving people that introspection, that moment to reflect, that moment to, again, feel something, to feel more alive, because people more than ever need that right now. I would say when we're looking at where things are shifting, even looking into the future, I think luxury is a really interesting sector to look at when it comes to experiential marketing. I saw this somewhere, I saw it written somewhere, and I can't remember who said it. But somebody said luxury is now presence. The new luxury is all about intentionality. It's not about what you consume anymore. It's how it makes you feel and who you do it with. And like healing is almost like the new status symbol. And so
Mm.
we're seeing more curated experiences that feel sacred, that feel rare, that feel so hard to replicate. But it's especially the ones where shared rituals are really at the helm, that are intentionally amplifying well-being. So we're seeing like Remedy Place pop up, Other Ship. We're seeing that Amiyali Resort in Utah. I think I saw you post about that as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Those are great examples of this huge shift in even like hospitality, right? Where these luxurious, experiences that people are seeking out are intentionally being designed to, again, to help people heal, to help people feel something, to really amplify well-being. So I feel like we're going to see that more and more with the Louis Vuittons, with, all of these luxury brands where, again, healing is almost becoming this new status symbol.
That's amazing. I think just to like play that back a little bit. So what I'm hearing there is like we're moving from this kind of traditional awareness, like building
Yeah.
awareness around your brand, to actually much more intentionality to make it more not just memorable but meaningful, using kind of Matt Durden's kind of
Yeah.
model. But then that meaningfulness requires reflection and in going inward.
Yeah.
how are brands or how are organizations thinking about this in the sense of creating this, and I wouldn't even say personalization, this individualization, because that requires you to kind of reach inside of almost everybody if you can. I mean, part of designing experiences is you kind of create, and then you step out, and you can't necessarily control the experience, what the experience people are having. So
Mhm.
how are organizations thinking about that when they're creating some kind of experiential approach, and then trying to also make sure that they've got that balance of individualism and inviting the customer or the fan or whoever into that space to make that level of connection? Just a
Yeah.
reflection I just had.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. It's a really interesting question. I can tell you what we're doing at
Cool.
XDA just to
Do
sort
it.
of
Yeah, do
just to
it.
sort of
That's why I'm
no, and
asking.
I no, I love it. I mentioned this at the top of this is, a huge part of what we do at XDA is we look at everything through a neuroaesthetics lens, right? So we're always looking at the impact of aesthetic experiences on our brains and bodies, right? Largely, by examining people's nervous system. So we're looking at how can we bring in light? How can we bring in sound frequencies? How can we bring in nature and even scent, right? To really alter the way that people as individuals, but also the collective, right, are having an experience and really designing for specific feelings and emotions to drive specific behaviors. Um, and I think that's a really interesting way, again, of saying, when a client comes to us and says, we want to make people feel optimistic, right? It's looking at how can we create this optimistic collective experience, right? Maybe we use, purple is actually a color that is supposed to inspire optimism, but maybe we also use an 852 hertz frequency that not only gets everybody on the same wavelength, right, as a collective, but individually, replaces negative thoughts with positive ones and really sparks that optimism because we know that about a certain sound frequency. And that individual is having that individualized, curated experience for themselves, where even though everybody might be on the same wavelength, they're able to have their own individual experience, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
so, we always are looking at how can we pair science and design together to ultimately shape people's individual experiences for the greater collective, right? Um,
I have
Go
a
ahead,
question.
sorry.
I have a question.
Yeah, I can tell. I'm like, something's brewing here.
I have a question. So, what's the line between authenticity and manipulation, and being
Mm.
authentic about what we're creating as well here? Just a thought I
Ooh,
had.
yeah.
I just thought I'd throw that one in. Um,
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good one.
mm.
I think it's positive manipulation, if that makes sense. Like manipulation sounds like a bad term. I
No,
think
it could
it's
be
like
good.
it can be good, right? And it goes back to, what I was saying earlier is like, at the end of the day, and James Wallman loves to say this, part of the WXO, is like, at the end of the day, we just want to create better experiences that create better worlds. So if we're using our as experienced designers, if we're wielding our power responsibly, right, and designing these experiences that unite people together, that make them connect over their differences, that help them have these positive experiences that amplify their well-being, right? Going back to the neuroaesthetics, if I can help somebody like increase their oxytocin, reduce their stress, and help amplify their well-being, well, damn, like that's
Yeah,
pretty powerful,
yeah.
right? And going back to how I grew up, and Animator, our head of creative, I always used to tell her this was I had this aha moment a couple years ago where, growing up, my sister, I have two older sisters. My oldest sister, she's an environmental lawyer trying to save the world. I have another sister who is an OBGYN who literally brings babies into the world. And I always used to joke, like, oh, I just do experiences. And then
Hmm.
COVID happened. And, as a strategist, you're always having a pulse on everything. I joined XDA. We've been really driving home this neuroaesthetics approach. And I realized like, holy shit, like we actually are like, we have the ability to save people's lives, especially when we're thinking about the loneliness epidemic. I
Yeah.
mean, that is super wild knowing that the collective experience, you know, Emil Durkheim in I think it was 1920, like over 100 years ago, he coined the term collective effervescence around saying, hey, when people come together, something really euphoric happens, right? Our immune system increases, our kindness and empathy goes up, and oxytocin floods our systems. And those bonding moments lead to greater personal development, decreased levels of anxiety. Oh, there's an arrow. Or
Hey.
um, decreased depression, but most importantly, gives us the resilience to combat loneliness. And when you hear that, you're like, holy shit, as an experienced designer, I actually am contributing to the greater good. I actually am helping people not feel so lonely in the world. And I don't know if you saw this, the World Health Organization just a few weeks ago just declared social health as a global health priority. They said it is as equally important as mental and physical health.
Wow.
So it's now becoming a third pillar in
Yeah.
our health system. And so again, and we talk about this in the WXO, experiences are medicinal.
Mm.
It's why doctors are prescribing museum visits, right?
Mm.
It's
Mm.
why we're seeing, again, going back to the luxurious, you know, trends that we're seeing, the luxury hospitality sector. It's why all of these experiences are like, oh shit, we need to be helping people amplify their well-being, especially in the world that we're living in. So it's
Definitely.
positive manipulation, right? Going
Yeah.
back to your question.
Yeah. I I think there always will be some brands that perhaps are less honest about it personally, but
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
there always will
totally.
be.
There's
It'll
always
be
going to
all about
be
bottom line.
there's
Yeah.
yeah, there's greenwashing, there's tokenism, there's a
Yeah.
lot there are brands that are doing that. But I think that also goes back to, you know, another huge trend that, you know, we're seeing is this idea that brands are really becoming the new gods. And that's a very provocative statement.
Oh,
So going back
go
to
on,
authenticity.
expand on that one.
Yeah,
Hang
I
on.
know. That's a big. Well, I think what's interesting if you look at human beings
Hmm.
for centuries, right? Worship has been core to who we are, right? It's why religion has been a cornerstone to who we are, right? It's shaped our identities, it's given us the moral guidance, it's created social cohesion and community, right? And so for centuries, that has been our innate human desire, it has been that worship.
Hmm.
Now, fast forward to today, right? We're seeing that desire has never truly gone away. Again, going back to that Wonderman Thompson study I talked about, like people want to feel something, people want to feel alive, and they expect brands to help them feel those intense emotions. And so we're seeing that the gods that we're worshiping are actually shifting towards brands, right? And there's, you know, we're seeing brandoms and fandoms and cult like followings really like pop up everywhere,
Hmm.
right? One of my other favorite statistics is that 85% of people between the ages of 14 to 44 say they identify as a fan of something, and over 50% of people consider fandoms a crucial part of their personal identity. So when you hear that, you're like, whoa, like something really interesting is happening. But I think my favorite study is the study that was done by Dr. Michael Platt. He's a neuroscientist at Wharton. He did this experiment with Apple and Samsung users. And what he found was Apple customers' brains lit up, showing empathy for the brand when exposed to something negative about it, while Samsung customers did not react in the same way. And
Hmm.
so basically, the takeaway there is that our brains have evolved to have empathy and loyalty for things beyond human beings. And successful brands like Apple have been able to create that social emotional connection,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so again, when you hear something like that as well, you're like, okay, the bar has been raised here. brands are playing this large role in really fostering our identity and our purpose. But then it goes back to what you said around manipulation and authenticity. I think we as experienced designers and creators, when we're partnering with these brands, right, we need to help wield that power as a force for good, right?
Yeah, yeah, agree. And I think this isn't come from a place of specific knowledge. This is just an observation. Is when we have a growth in anything in industry, it can be eroded. The natural, like the essence of it. And so with like experiential marketing, which is like booming right now,
Yeah.
there's always a risk in that. If everything's experiential, then nothing is. And so I think there's also this balance in this as well. I mean, you can't predict it or control it, but I think it's also to be mindful of that as well, to be choosy about what you do and don't do as well.
Yeah,
More
for
importantly.
sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So tell me about something that you've shared as well. I think publicly it was around the model of the think, feel, do being dead.
Yeah.
And I'm really we've
Another
got God.
provocative statement.
Yeah, exactly. Dead. It's done. So tell us a little bit more about that. Tell us a bit more.
Yeah. No, so I think what's important to note around, again, we talked about traditional experiential marketing versus where experiential marketing is headed. I think it's the same thing when we're thinking about, old creative strategy and new creative strategy.
Yeah.
When I first started in strategy, it's the age-old framework that everybody talks about, which is, what do we want them to think? What do we want them to feel? What do we want them to know? There's think, feel, know, do. There's think, feel, see, do. There's all these different frameworks, right? I can't tell you how many times I've used that framework in my career, but I think what's really interesting about that is that basically what it's saying is like, we need to be giving equal weight to what they think, what they know, what they feel, and what they do. But when you look at, when we're looking at today's world that's transitioning from a society plagued by loneliness to one that's prioritizing those meaningful connections and emotional experiences, that model is not just dead. Neuroscience proves that it's just wrong, right? We should be focusing on when somebody feels something, right? That's when we think and that's when we do. It's not there's no equal weight. It should all be about how do we want them to feel? Because when we feel something, we influence up here, right? Which makes somebody, ultimately drive that behavior and drive that action, which again is why our creative strategy team is so focused on the neuroaesthetics lens.
Yeah.
Right.
And that also connects back to what you're saying from a brand point of view, that the actual meaning of the brand, what they stand for, what they relate to, not just as a business, but to their local community, to the world, to whatever level they want to go to, what they stand for. That has to be so clear in and very, very authentic in who they are and how they act.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Totally. I mean, we as brand experience creators, brands all over the world, I think what's important is that, brands are shaping those self-beliefs. They are sparking that confidence. They are building a perspective that people want and people are seeking out, that people want to believe in the best versions of themselves. I think, we do a ton of work with Lego. Lego's one of our greatest clients. They're incredible. Their belief around the power of play, right? And, reducing stress and increasing that emotional stability for children, right? Think about children right now. They're this generation that's having to deal with more stress than any other generation before them, right? But what they're doing is they're encouraging imaginative play. They're allowing children to build anything they can envision, fostering creativity and self-expression. And they're also creating that shared ritual between a parent and a child as well, right? And so they're creating that self-confidence. They're creating that belief system that we were talking about earlier. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
We also just did some really great work with Poosh. And if you're not familiar with Poosh, it's a lifestyle wellness brand founded by Kourtney Kardashian. It's a really interesting brand because they actually promote the duality of living a clean and balanced life. So, it's the idea of like, hey, you can stay up all late partying with your best friends till 3 a.m., but you can still make the Pilates class the next morning, or you
Mm.
can still have, a veggie burger with the gluten-free, bun and all, right? It's you can have both. It's fine. Um, and what I love about Poosh is that, again, it's not just selling products, it's selling an identity that is all about having your cake and eating it too, right? And this year at Coachella, we actually partnered with their team to create and bring to life that belief system through an experience that's called Camp Poosh. So basically, it's a house and haven for all things wellness. So everything from, again, you can take shots and have party with your best friends all weekend long, right? But then we have cryotherapy and some really great wellness type experiences. But again, I think that's an important lesson. um we're giving people something to believe in, and being able to allow them to see the best version of themselves, and that's really, really powerful.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say you built a big cake so that everybody could eat it, literally. There's also something you mentioned as well, like creative strategy, because this is your bag. This is something that you do, clearly. How has creative strategy, and I know perhaps maybe we can lean a little bit into the neuroscience here, but how is creative strategy as a discipline, as a function, um, as a way of working, evolving with the evolution of experiential marketing?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think what's really important to note about that evolution is, again, knowing that the bar has been raised not just with brands but also within experiences. Like, you have to have a story within an experience, right? It's no longer, again, just like, oh, we're showing up and, again, attend the event, right? Like, people want to be immersed in the brand's world, right? And
Yeah.
so I think with creative strategy, yes, it's the neuroaesthetics and the neuroscience and all the things that we've talked about, but it's also ensuring that that experience has a story, right? Because our brains are wired for storytelling, and people want to be immersed in the brand's world. We talk a lot about story living, right? And making sure that audiences feel like they are the main protagonist in feeling like they are a part of the story, but also driving the narrative and dictating those outcomes, right? And so that's a huge part of creative strategy is, we're not just the emotioneers, we're also the storytellers and the story livers, and making sure that, that story is being pulled through from the start of the experience to the end of the experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think there's a, correct me if I'm wrong, because there's a lovely example coming up right now with Netflix House, isn't it? Where they're moving.
Yeah.
I mean, I love this because it's such a great example. I think a lot of people who aren't necessarily in this field can relate to is, for those that watch Netflix or, pretty religious from a Netflix perspective and watch all of the box sets or any of their favorite shows. I love this kind of this duality now of moving from like just literally a two-dimensional show that you watch on a TV to now actually be able to go and immerse yourself into your favorite show and participate. Um, I think it's just super clever business,
Oh, for
personally. It's,
sure. For
yeah.
sure.
What else are
Yeah,
you seeing
no.
in that as well, like that evolution? Because I love the storytelling to story doing and living. That transition to that. What else do you see in that area? How do you see that evolving?
Yeah, I think it goes back to, again, like, it's not just telling the story and immersing it, it's people want to choose like how they are the character and how they are manipulating the narrative. It's like taking it that far, right? Like, so it is putting someone in Squid Games or putting them, inside their favorite TV show, but then not only making them feel like they're on set, but then making them feel like, ooh, I can change the plot here. I can create a plot twist, right? And making them feel like they are an actual character. So it's taking it a step further, right? seeing that a lot, right? I think Squid Games is actually one of the best examples of that. You're seeing that pop up in New York City. You
Yeah.
could actually go in and become one of the players. You label yourself a certain number. You actually can determine like all of the different plot lines. It's a really, really fascinating. I know I would love to do that.
Oh my God. I heard Pac-Man is meant to be amazing. I think Pac-Man in the UK right now, I've heard is good
Well,
fun as well. Yeah,
say that.
Minecraft as well. That was apparently really good. I haven't been to that one just yet. I know we've referenced neuroscience a bit. I know this is an area that you're super fascinated in,
Yeah.
and obviously leverage. Tell me kind of what's happening with neuroscience right now. Where are some of the really interesting, right on the edge of experiential, fun
Yeah,
opportunities?
totally. I would say again, like I keep talking about neuroaesthetics because I think in the United States, a lot of people aren't talking about it. It's talked about so much in Europe, like, London, I would say, is like a huge hub for neuroaesthetics. My favorite authors, Susan Magsamen and Ivy Ross, they wrote Your Brain on Art. I don't know if you've read this book.
Oh, I
It's
haven't
one
yet. I haven't. I've definitely heard
it's
of it. Yeah.
so good.
Yeah.
But they're two neuroscientists. They actually put neuroaesthetics on the map in the United States. They wrote that book. It's become so popular. So again, we're seeing this everywhere with people now just intentionally saying, "Ooh, okay, like, of course when we hear, oh, openness and curvature, oh, okay, the brain instinctively prefers curved forms." When you hear that, you're like, "No, duh." But it's actually thinking about how can I intentionally again design that, knowing that it creates safety, it creates calm, and it creates approachability. So we're seeing that again pop up more and more, throughout experiential.
Yeah. I've got some pods coming up on particularly on soundscapes at the moment. There's some
Oh yeah,
awesome stuff happening in that. I'm really excited for that field, particularly. Yeah, just yeah. I won't spoil it, but there's some coming up. So that's really good.
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, what the guys are doing at White Mirror to L Acoustics,
Yeah.
there's a lot of really interesting sound design that is happening in the world right now that it's
Yeah.
worth paying attention to. My favorite experience by White Mirror was the Lupana experience. I don't know if you saw that they replicated, a beautiful Lupana tree, and actually like immersed people under it. And they
Yeah.
brought in, a beautiful soundscape, but then, they changed the temperature in the room and really created this like incredible environment, again using neuroaesthetics and bringing in that neuroscience, but especially using that sound,
Yeah.
to really create that environment for people.
I can confirm nor deny that White Mirror may have been on the podcast and it's coming out soon. So I'll
Oh
share
my
that.
gosh, I
Yeah.
cannot wait. Tom is so incredible, so is Rami. They're
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So watch out for that one, everybody. Um,
Yeah.
so look, can we just? I'd love to just also because I mean you're so immersed in this world. Let's talk some brands, and I don't necessarily mean like from an XDA. Let's just like
Mhm.
make it relatable for people as well. Like, where what are some of your kind of favorite brands that are doing interesting things right now? And what kind of industries do you see probably kind of popping up more and having opportunities to leverage um, what's happening in this world right now?
I think the most interesting world to look at right now is
Mm.
actually fashion, what they're
Yeah,
doing. So obviously we've seen fashion evolve. There's been some really interesting, like unique mashups between fashion brands but I think my favorite example of a fashion brand completely flipping an experience on its head was the Christian Louboutin fashion show last year in Paris. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't.
They, instead of saying, hey, we're going to do a runway, and have all of our models come out in our new Christian Louboutins. They actually created almost like a Broadway musical and recorded it and made it this unbelievable experience. No, it's like, talk about story living. It is basically this like 10-story house and they put all of these models wearing the Christian Louboutins. All of a sudden, you hear a fire siren go off, and all of these dancers start diving into a pool and doing these like synchronized swimming with their Christian Louboutins. And then this fireman comes sliding down, and then all of a sudden somebody's singing. I mean, it is unbelievable. But I feel like fashion in particular is a really interesting sector to look at in terms of not just the different mashups, right? The brand mashups, but like how they're bringing in experiential now and rethinking everything, right? And
Yeah.
rethinking even their fashion shows. I saw that I think in fashion, 61% of fashion brands are look into 2026 are looking at increasing their experiential marketing budgets just because of how everybody is raising the bar.
Yeah.
So I would say fashion is one of the most interesting sectors to look at right now.
How interesting. I don't know why this came to mind, and maybe I was talking to a friend about this recently. I I used to go to Ibiza in the 90s, and
Mm.
there was a night on the Monday called Manumission, which is in one of the world's biggest clubs, which is still there today, the club itself, but Manumission
Mm.
stopped a long time ago. And the stuff that they staged, even back then, I mean, it just reminded me now, I mean, taking a normal nightclub, but then staging it into this theatrical, crazy, hedonistic night. Um, called
Totally.
the Good Ship Manumission, and I still remember some of the things with trapeze artists and all sorts of things happening, and it's so like that. I'm sharing it because I'm sharing a memory with you that's been ingrained inside of me with the memory and the emotion, and I love that kind of Louis Vuitton example you shared of like moving, like challenging themselves to move outside of a typical kind of fashion show, which has probably been the same for decades. I mean, some form of walk that they have to walk
Totally.
out. And not only that, recording that kind of form compared to what you described, that's two different, very different types of content that you're capturing in real time as well to repurpose and to leverage post show as well. Super clever.
Very, very clever. Yeah, I think, what it reminds me of, and at XTA, we call it unexpected energies and unexpected places, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you're like, I would never in a million years think to see a fashion show become, again, like an actual Broadway musical, right? Like
Yeah.
that's wild to think about. I would say the other thing that we're seeing, going back to when you said the club culture
Mm,
example,
yeah.
we're also seeing a lot of retail spaces like the Nikes of the world on, they're actually, doing these private, sneaker try-ons, but they're actually bringing in like actual DJs. So it's like really interesting seeing, club culture not being confined to a like dark, sweaty basement, right?
Yeah.
They're spilling into, retail, high-end retail spaces and just like, again, an unexpected energy. We're also seeing in coffee shops, right? People are partying like it's 1999, right? At bakeries and coffee shops, right? Like you walk in and you're like, oh, I wasn't expecting to see Tiesto here or Kygo, right? Like these
Yeah.
big DJs are, and it's only 1 p.m., right? And this isn't happening in Las Vegas, right? It's
Yeah.
happening in New York, it's happening in Portland, Oregon, it's happening, you know, all over the place. So I think that's a really interesting trend that we're seeing as well.
What's happening with coffee shops? Because all of a sudden, we're also seeing brands create their own coffee shops as well. Some of them are gorgeous. I mean, just design wise, they're so, so inviting. That's another cross pollination as well that seems to be fashionable
Yeah.
at the
I
moment.
think I think what's interesting about coffee shops is that, it truly is a third place. It's
Yeah.
it's that place that you can go and, you know, connect with somebody. Going back to the inscapism, maybe it's a place for you to reflect. I certainly love to go to coffee shops and write poetry and things like that. But I think it truly is, it's a third place. It's a place for you to go and meet, connect with somebody, maybe connect with a stranger. And now I think coffee brands or other brands who are taking over coffee shops, right, are realizing like, oh, this is a third place. People do want to connect with other people. And what better place, right? We're also seeing like yoga pop up at coffee shops, right? So again, it's becoming that
Mm.
third place for social interaction for sure.
Question:
Hmm.
do you think experiential marketing would be where it is today if COVID didn't happen? Because sometimes events happen in the world that send certain things off in different directions, and some
Mm.
boded well, less so. Because I think there's this interesting, I don't know. I think the purpose element. I mean, the things we've just shared today, very brand led. Some of the examples
It's a
we
great
shared.
question.
Yeah, and how? I mean, I love that. Yes, it's created a loneliness epidemic, for sure, and I think there's a huge issue, particularly in young men right now. There's some big challenges to overcome.
Yeah.
Um, So I'm just wondering, like, how experiential can serve some of those as well. Like, where's the opportunity in those to really bring people together in a much more meaningful way?
Yeah, to answer your yeah,
Mm.
to answer your sort of earlier comment around,
Yeah.
do you think the pandemic, I actually think this would have, I still think experiential would have continued to boom because of how we're just all phone addicts. Yes, the pandemic did, no, seriously.
No, no,
Yes,
I'm
the
laughing.
pandemic, yeah, no, but like, we seriously are.
Yeah,
But, again, like, yes, the pandemic made us even more of phone addicts, but the way that phones are designed now, it's giving us those dopamine boosts
yes,
constantly, right? Which is contributing. I still think there would be a loneliness epidemic, whether there was a pandemic or not. And
mm.
so, right. And like, James, I think he talked about this at WXO Summit. I think I think he had quoted a study that was from, I think, like 10 years ago, right? Saying like 1 out of 10 people look at their phones while they have sex, right? James, if you're listening, I love that quote. But now, actually, if you look at the study, I think it's like 1 out of 5. So again, people are still doing that, right? But it's
Mm.
like much worse probably because of the pandemic. But that was 10 years ago.
Wow.
That was 10 years ago, right? And so I still think people would be trading in relationships for their phone ships.
Yeah,
I'm serious.
yeah,
And I really think that, the way, I don't think technology is a bad thing. And I think White Mirror, those guys talk about it really, really well around how technology should be used to enhance an experience, not necessarily define it.
definitely.
Um, but I think there is something happening right now that's very concerning around phones, especially with adolescents, around how those brief bursts of dopamine releases, you know, create this vicious addictive cycle where people are like, I would rather spend time on my phone. And I forget what the exact number is. I think it was like 70% of people say, I would rather spend time on my phone than connect with another person. And so, again, seeing those numbers, and when you hear something like that, you're like, whoa, experiential, we need to be creating more experiences to get people off their phones and to create the proper dopamine, not those brief bursts of
Mm.
dopamine, but the healthy kind of dopamine that makes people get off their phones. I mean, you're seeing all of these no phone experiences
Yeah,
now,
there's a
right?
counter movement, definitely, and
Yeah,
even
there's
with dumb phones, and yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. A lot of analog type experiences, but again, going back to luxury as presence and healing being this, new status symbol, right? Is like, I think that's a huge reason why people want these wellness experiences, right?
Yeah.
Is because we got to get people off their phones, right? And so it's interesting to think about that as an experienced designer is like, what if we didn't have a million screens? What if we didn't incorporate AR and, bringing in people's cellular devices, like what would that look like?
Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting.
I think that's something in there where neuroaesthetics could play a really big part, is entering into a world, turning your phone off for 2 days, and going through that process of grounding back inwards for a period.
Yeah,
There will be a space for that. I'm sure it's happening already, but yeah, I think more of that will be needed. Just
totally. Going back.
meet people where they are. Just meet them where they are. Yeah,
Totally. Going back to that inscapism, but also doing that shared ritual with somebody. I think that's what's so powerful about going back to what you were saying about wellness experiences, about like those retreat type experiences. It's, yeah, being away from your cell phone, unplugging, doing though a shared ritual with somebody, and having that experience create that shared ritual for you that you take back with
yeah,
you,
yeah,
right? I think is really powerful.
yeah. It's a shame that we need it so much, but it's one of those. Um,
It totally is.
yeah. Can I just ask as well, like just from an inscapism, because I really like that,
Mm,
because there's a lot of escapism if we want it.
yeah.
Because you've mentioned it a few times. Tell me more about this. I'm really curious.
Well, going back to the White Mirror folks, when we were at
Mm,
WXO Summit, Rami was talking about how, the cultural zeitgeist is just so complex and complicated right now, just with everything happening in the
yeah,
world, especially in America. And so, it's not about helping people escape to another world. That's not solving mental health crisis. That's not solving loneliness. That's not solving all of all of the issues that are happening, right? It's again going back to how can we create a moment in time for someone, a micro moment, like you had mentioned, a glimmer, right? Where, you're able to look inward, have that introspection, connect with yourself, not necessarily connect outward, but you're connecting inward, right? Where the experience is happening inside, not necessarily outside. Um, and so, again, that's why I think wellness is that as a sector and as an industry, we're seeing that evolve very, very quickly, where, community and self-care and lifestyle are all sort of blending together and really reshaping how people reflect and recharge. And
yeah,
it's really, again, that inscapism.
yeah. I feel like it's quite transactional, isn't it? If you go to a spa, generally, I know.
Mm.
If you look at most menus, they pretty much read the same, like a 60-minute deep massage, right? And I don't know. I'm just getting into a creative mode. What if we just deleted that for a minute and made each one a specific experience? Like, what would that look like? And actually named it differently. That gave a different narrative or intention behind it. I don't know. I might ad libbing there,
Yeah.
but yeah,
No, I'm with you. It's kind
but
of like
challenging it.
it's like the modern evolution of like the country club, right? Which is like we now have these wellness social clubs
Yeah.
where you can go, you can meet someone, but you can also like, do a cold plunge. You can do a movement class. You might go off to sit by yourself and journal somewhere, right?
Mm,
With a soundscape immersing you while you do it. It's these like high vibe spaces that are allowing people to again not just like meet someone, but again have that introspection. So it's kind of like people aren't saying, it's like instead of cocktails and golf, you get the cold plunges, the movement, and also the reflection, which I think is key.
yeah, I love that. Um, okay, so just in terms of a bit of a grounding towards the end of the podcast, Jessica.
I love it.
Um, because obviously you've continuing a very successful career. I've heard lots of good things and reputationally, and um, I would just love to like for you to kind of maybe share any reflections for your like career journey. I think there's a lot of people, in the field of experience design. Period. We just literally had a few weeks ago 36 students visit us in Stockholm. We hosted from Matt
Oh, I love
Durden's
that.
Experience Design faculty from the US.
They're all so great, those
Oh
kids.
my God. Yeah.
They're fantastic.
I, well, I had a moment of feeling we felt a bit old actually when they walked in the door. I don't know why I was thinking they were going to be older, and they walked in. I was like, "Oh my God, they're really young." Oh no, actually, no, I'm really old. But wow, I mean, just super curious, and I was a bit jealous because I was like, "Wow, I wish I'd learned experience design and it existed when I was that age because it probably didn't exist in
And
this
that
form."
there's an actual major in it.
Yeah, it's a thing now,
Like,
and I think
I'm
the
so
craft.
jealous.
Yeah.
I'm so jealous. Oh yeah,
Uh,
when I talk to
yeah.
those guys, I'm like, I'm sorry, there's a major now for experience design. You don't know how lucky you are. But when you talk to them, they're like, yeah, the hero's journey. And I'm like, what? It's
this it's the
fabulous.
future is bright, and I love the next gen
The future
of
is bright for
the
sure.
next gen of talent. So I just like
Yeah, Matt's
what would you
kids.
share? I know you won an award
Yeah.
last year in North Carolina for your.
Oh, thank
Yeah, I
you.
saw that. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Um,
Thanks. I
but
stalk you
yeah.
too, so don't worry. Yeah, no, I always love giving advice because I have been fortunate in my career to have just like really good people around me, really good mentors. I would say, and this is within balance, of course, but I have always been Jessica. And I'm being serious, is whenever there's an opportunity, raise your hand and say yes.
Oh,
Again, within reason. You don't want to burn yourself out. But I will say, like, something that I have always prided myself about is I've always tried to be when somebody is like, hey, can someone do this? Yes. Like, let me try it.
I love that.
Um, hey, we need someone to put together. I'll be the first person because it, not only shows that you're taking initiative, obviously, but every experience that you have, you learn something and you gain something out of it, right? It's like, it's the same thing, why we design experiences, right? When people go, we want them to gain something out of it, but it's the same thing in life, right? If you say yes, you have no idea where it might take you. If I had, obviously no's are important, right? But all of the yeses that I have done leaning into being Jessica has really brought me to where I am today and has made me make certain connections with people. It's opened doors to promotions. It's, allowed me to get recognized in different ways because I simply said yes. And, another thing that somebody said to me, is that growth is hard. Growth is hard, right? Like doing the most uncomfortable thing seems hard, right? Prior to XDA, I was somewhere else. I was super comfortable. I was super happy when XDA fell into my lap. I could have said no, right? I could have said no because I was super comfortable and everything was great. I was pregnant and I was about to have a baby and I was like, yeah, let's throw a new job. It's going to be hard, but growth is hard. And so saying yes and knowing that, growth is hard, but growth opens so many doors, I think is, one of the best pieces of advice I've gotten. So
yeah.
hopefully somebody else will take that and run
And
with it.
and can I also ask as well, just how have you balanced career life, being a mum, like that journey for yourself? Because taking a role like you have done at XDA at that particular moment in life as well, how have you navigated that?
Thank you for asking. That's a
Yeah,
really
it's quite,
thoughtful question. I
yeah.
really love that question. You're obviously a parent because you asked that question. But yeah, so I would say, you know, being being a working mom it's hard, but I do feel very fortunate where XDA is fully remote.
Yeah,
We travel a lot. There has been times where I have traveled 3 times a month before. But I have a really, really good support system. But I would say for myself, I'm always number one. Yes, my kids are number one, but meaning if I don't take care of myself, I can't take care of my kids. Right. And so
yeah,
that was a really hard transition from being a new mom with young kids. You're always like, thinking about your kids, and then you're like, oh, I haven't eaten today, or I haven't gotten a haircut in over a year, right? Or your tooth starts to hurt. You're like, I haven't been to the dentist.
Yeah.
Right. And so it was a really
Mm.
hard lesson for me, was like, oh, I need to start taking care of myself in order to be not just a better mom. Once you're a better person in your personal life, everything else just falls into place everywhere else. Right. And so
Yeah.
I noticed that the moment I started taking care of myself better, career was great, home was great, but most importantly, myself was great. Right. And so that, I would say, I do a lot of meditation. I'm going through transcendental meditation right now, TM.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's a lot. You have to meditate twice a day for 20 minutes. And it's finding that time, and
Mm.
you've got to do it. We just went to our company summit, and 55 people there. Right. And I was like, gotta go back to my hotel room and get those 20 minutes in. Right.
Yeah.
And it's being disciplined about that. But that has, I would say, bringing in that mind works has been really, really powerful and important for me in terms of feeling like I'm in the right headspace.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that obviously is in energy and frequency and maintaining.
Yes,
Yeah, it's super important. Super
for
important.
sure. For
Oh, we could
sure.
get into that separate podcast.
I know. No,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, but it's like, it's remembering to drink water. It's like little things. Like
Mm.
it's going, like, it's like learning what you learn in experience design and applying it to your life. Honestly, it's like those
Yeah.
micro moments: drinking water, doing meditation, going on a walk, increasing the neuroplasticity in your brain. Instead of taking the same route every single day when I walk my dog, I take a different route, right? It's thinking, I seriously apply neuroscience to my life every single day. It can be as simple as moving around furniture in your house.
Yep. Yep.
It can be, I'm not gonna take this call today at my house. I'm gonna go to a coffee shop today, a coffee shop that I haven't tried before. It's all of those things, but again, it's increasing that neuroplasticity in your brain, and really, you know, really, really trying to going back to the energy frequencies and maintaining that.
Definitely. Oh my God, I love all of that. You're talking my field right
Yeah,
now.
my husband
I
thinks I'm crazy. He
no,
he walks in,
we're not.
he's like, "Oh, we moved the furniture again." I'm like, "It's good for our children." It's
Well,
good for our
apparently
children.
here's something for you, because I've moved country.
Hmm.
Might be another one on the go as well soon, but
Oh,
a there was a start. Apparently, when you move country, you basically, it's one of the best things you can do for your brain, because you remove all of the automations, like where do I go for a pizza, where's my dentist, where do I get the bus from, which bus from A to B, like all those like automatic patterns that we have, and you
yeah.
are effectively deleting them and having to relearn all of that again in a new environment completely. And the amount of times I got on the bus the wrong way, or trying to figure out, oh God, where's the doctor located? It was just, and it makes sense. It takes a while, and then you get into your routines, and then it's you start to settle in as it is. So that I relate to that a lot, and I meditate every day, so I definitely relate
Oh,
to
you do
what you
too.
shared. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
you should look in. I mean, there's so many different types of
loads.
meditation. TM has been the best for me in terms of just having, and you have your safe word, right? Where seriously, like you lock in. Like
Yep.
before a presentation, I say it. If I go on stage, I say it. Like, and it's really powerful. But no, but you're not allowed to share your safe word. So
No,
just letting you know.
and it's I encourage anybody. I think it's important to create space for yourself, and having a daily practice, regardless of what that is. I think is an important thing, just to go inward. I think it's very important, very important
Yeah,
today.
I do too.
We are overloaded. We're just absolutely overloaded by
It's
information, content. Yeah,
information overload. I mean, about everything. Like being a mom, it's like, here are 47 ways on how to put your kid down for a nap. And you're like, oh, I just want one way, please. I just want one way. Right. Yeah. No, it's ridiculous. It's too much. It's too much. But going back to the meditation piece, what I love about it, and somebody said this to me before, what meditation helps do, it's like, imagine you have an ocean, right, of a million water particles, it helps you zoom in on that one particle, just
Yeah.
one drop of water, and being able to focus on that, right? And see clearly. Like you can see how it moves, you can see how it grows, maybe, right? It's being able to focus on that one piece of a giant, giant, chaotic puzzle, right? And it's been really beneficial again in both professional and personal.
Personal. Yeah. I mean, you're bringing in that intentionality into that practice. Yeah. Oh my God, I can relate to it so much. It's so good.
I love it. I love
Uh,
it.
what a lovely way to end the podcast as well.
Me
Jessica,
too.
thank you so much. I am eternally grateful for you joining the podcast and contributing to the Experienced Designers. It's great to connect with you, and yeah, thank you for joining.
Likewise. Likewise. And thank you for inviting me here and for the conversation. It's always such a pleasure. And just really, really appreciate your time and your energy and just your thoughtfulness. So thank you.
Thank you. And just a quick question as well. How do people contact you? What's the best way to get in contact with you if they want to learn more about the work you're doing or
Yes,
meditation or just saying yes more? How can people contact you?
absolutely. Absolutely. Friend me on LinkedIn. I'm a big LinkedIn user. You can also send me an email. It's jessica.weickert@xdagency.com. Always down to chat. Um, hit me up. Would love to
Amazing.
chat.
I'll put all the links in the show notes as well for those to make it easier for everyone. So brilliant.
Fantastic.
But
Thank you,
thank you.
Steve.
Thank you.